Hello friends and welcome back to my channel. It is week 4 of the Three Rivers Pantry Challenge. We are halfway through. Wow, time has flown. So this week I did some reorganizing, rotating of my long-term pantry storage, and I'm having to use those particular items up, and I'm trying to incorporate them into my everyday cooking, because things like the Bisquick mix, if you saw my video from I think Wednesday or Thursday I put it up, I usually do pancakes and waffles with that, so I'm having to reinvent how I use these mixes, and it should be very interesting. So let's see what I did with them. So for dinner tonight, I'm going to see if I can use this Bisquick pancake and baking mix into a crust for my chicken pot pie. That's what I have here, the ingredients to make that, and we'll see how this works. So first things first, let's see if this mix is any good, and this is all I could find was the kids' Crayola scissors, so that's what I'm using, and they work just fine. So it looks okay. There's nothing in it. I didn't expect it because it's in a Mylar bag. I'm smelling it here and it smells fine. So let's look inside and see if it's good. Now I did put the instructions and everything in there, so it should be good to go. As you can see, there's nothing in it. It smells okay. I smelled it again, and we're gonna go with it. So I'm going to put probably about a cup or so into this bowl and mix it for my crust. Now on hindsight, I probably should have mixed it a lot thinner than what I did. I'm adding milk. So my thought process here was I probably should make it probably thicker than I would say for waffles. And on hindsight, that was probably an error on my part. I probably should have made it more like a pancake consistency, or maybe even thinner. Or even did like maybe biscuits and did, you will see later on how I did it. Do it like dollop it in for biscuit toppings. So I adding some seasonings to try and just season up the crust or the topping or whatever you want to call this. I'm not sure what to call it. It's just an experiment. Yeah, my family tonight are guinea pigs, and we're gonna try this out because I don't use this mix this way, but since I have quite a bit of it and I want to try and find other ways to use it up other than for breakfast. So now that I have my crust or my topping, I'm going to make my filling for my chicken pot pie. So in keeping with trying to use up everything I have that's open, here I have a little gravy packet, a chicken gravy packet that I want to use up. And as you can see, it's not that much left in it. Why I left this little bit, I don't know. But anyway, it adds flavor to the dish. And yes, I am using the broth of my chicken and my vegetables. I never understood why people say drain your vegetables, drain your meat, and then add water. That didn't make any sense to me. It never did. And this is the way I was taught by my mother, by my grandmother, and this is the way I've always done it. Use the water off your veg and your meat in your dish. Don't throw that away. That is a good source of maybe vitamins and nutrients that have leached out into that water. You want that back in your dish. The filling came together really quickly, and now the only thing I have to add is the meat. And what you didn't see, I did reserve a little bit of water for my vegetables to rinse out the jars, or in this case the cans from the chicken, and the vegetables themselves. I rinse them out and put them into the filling. So now let's assemble my chicken pot pie. I didn't put a bottom crust. I did butter the dish. I don't know if you can see that, but the dish is buttered. So in goes my filling, and then I'm going to put on my topping. And these spatulas are the best thing ever. If you ever get a chance to get them, I think I got these at Walmart about 7 years ago or so, and they get into your jars and your cans very nicely so you can get everything out. So in goes my filling, and I'm just gonna flatten it out a little bit, just make sure everything is kind of spread out. And then I'm going to get my topping on. Okay, so this is probably the part I would have done differently. So what I did was I actually spread it out kind of like a crust. Probably what I should have done is made it thinner, so you'll see in the end. It actually puffed up really nicely. If it was pancakes, this would have been great. But as you can see, I spread it out like a crust. I probably should have done dollops, more like biscuits. So I should have either done it a little thicker or a little thinner. But I think it turned out okay. It tasted good in the end. If you see how it's kind of on the thick side. So I think if it was more like a biscuit on the top, it would have been better. So if I would have dolloped it instead of spreading it over. But it was good in the end. So the next time I make this, I will try to adjust that topping and see if it works better, more like a biscuit on the top. So I finally got my flour situation sorted out. For tonight's dinner, I'm going to be making some tortillas, and I'm just measuring in my flour. If you want the recipe, my video from Friday shows me making these, and I give the recipe in that video from Friday. So if you want to have an in-depth look at how I made these, you can go over to my video from Friday, and I give you the breakdown of it and the recipe and everything. So I'm just making this. Will probably make, like I said, depending on what size you make them, between 12 and say 14 or 16 if you make the sort of smaller ones. So I'm just rolling them out and making my tortillas. So for dinner tonight, to go along with the tortillas, I have a home canned jar of chicken here I did back in January of 2022. I have a little bit of green salsa left in the fridge, a can of green enchilada sauce, and I have a little bit of rice left in the fridge. Then I found a couple of pieces of cheese and a little bit of grated cheese in a bag, so we're going to use that up. I'm not even going to get all fancy with this chicken enchiladas. I am just going to put my chicken, because it's already cooked. I don't need a frying pan. I'm just going to mix everything in this bowl, put my seasonings in, and call it a day. Really, seriously, I'm not going to get fancy with this. Just put the rest of the salsa in. It's already got onions in it and everything else. So I'm just going to put that in. It does bring a little bit of heat, so I don't need to put any more like hotter seasonings in there. Now all I'm going to do is mix in my rice. I probably should have used a little bigger bowl, but that's okay. And I did add a little bit of the enchilada sauce. So now to prepare my tortillas so I can use them, I'm just going to use a little bit of olive oil just to soften them up on each side, and probably like 30 seconds or so on each side, just to warm them through and get them a little bit more pliable. So now that I have all of my tortillas fried up and ready to go, it's now time to start assembling my enchiladas. So here I have my dish, and I'm just putting a little bit of enchilada sauce at the bottom, and I'm just going to spread that out. Now I'm just going to get my tortillas and put the filling inside and roll them up and get them into my dish. So I make mine a lot bigger than people normally do, and they are very filling. So here they are in the dish, and I'm just gonna put the rest of the enchilada sauce all over the top. So now that that is done, I'm going to sprinkle the top with a little bit of cheese, and then I'm going to get them in the oven. They don't stay in there very long because everything's pretty much cooked, just enough to melt that cheese a little bit, and then they are ready to eat. And this is tonight's dinner, green enchiladas. I'm trying to incorporate the pancake and biscuit mix I took out of my rotation for long-term storage. I usually make pancake mix from scratch, but this was a welcome change. I am making pancakes this morning for breakfast, and we like them smaller like this. So this is this morning's breakfast, and pancakes and sausages. So for lunch, I am doing grilled cheese and tomato soup. So these were some of the tortillas I had left over from the other night. I have folded them over with some cheese in the middle, and I am calling them grilled cheese. Now I've done this with chicken in the middle, cheese, beef, all sorts of things. So this is one way you can use those up. Another way you can use your tortillas is as a pizza crust. So for tonight's dinner, I am doing little personal pizzas. Everybody gets what they want, what they like. They don't have to pick, and everybody gets whatever they like on their pizza, and they can top it themselves. So I just use the tortilla as a crust, and basically the pizza is assembled the exact same way you would a normal pizza. Everybody gets to pick whatever toppings they like, and I get to pick my cheese topping because that's what I like. I like just cheese. You can leave everything else off. No chicken, no pineapples, none of that. And I do we eat pizza so much, I've actually made my own like pizza spices. So this little guy requested barbecue chicken. What? But anyway, so I got some chicken, got some barbecue sauce, and he got his barbecue chicken pizza. So for tonight's dinner, I'm doing a play on tater tot casserole. I've never bought tater tots, but anyway, I have a jar of green salsa here from 2020 that I need to use up because we have quite a few left. And I have some hamburger, the marinara sauce from the pizzas the other night, and then I have some hash browns for the topping. And then here I have my water going and my casserole dish. This poor casserole dish has had a workout this week. But the first thing I'm going to do is get my hash browns soaking. So what you want to do is cover them with boiling water and let them sit covered for about 10 to 12 minutes or so, I believe it says. So about 12 minutes. So while that's soaking, I'm going to get the bottom portion of my tater tot casserole into the dish, and I am going to mix it right in the bottom of this dish. I am not going to get another pan out to mix this in. I'm going to mix it right here and get everything into the bottom of this casserole dish. Didn't I just say I wasn't going to use another dish? I changed my mind. So I'm going to take my green salsa and my marinara sauce and mix it into this bowl. Now, I did add other spices that I didn't show. Anytime I use a tomato product, whether it's mine or someone else's in this case, I do add a little bit of sugar. This marinara sauce didn't have any sugar added in it, but if it had, I probably would have omitted the sugar, but it didn't. So I did add a little bit of sugar along with my spices into the sauce that I'm mixing here, and that's why I mixed it in here, just to make sure I thoroughly mixed it. So as you can see, there's a little more liquid at the bottom of the dish. I actually rinsed out my salsa jar as well as my hamburger jar with a little bit of hot water just to get all those flavoring and seasonings out. And I put it in with my hamburger. So this will help to make the sloppy joe sauce that is going in the bottom of the dish. Now I'm just adding in my regular spices that I use and making sure those are in there as well. I'm making sure I thoroughly scrape my bowl. This is where all the spices and everything hang out. And these spatulas, this one's a spoon, I don't know if it's called a spatula as well, is really good at scraping out those bowls. Now that my hash browns are drained and ready to go, I'm going to season them with the same seasonings that I use in the bottom portion of this casserole. Now I have this French fry seasoning that I hardly ever use that I'm going to use now because these are potatoes, so I'm going to use that up. I don't use it a lot because the first ingredient is salt and I am salt sensitive, so I try to stay away from as much salt as I possibly can. So I use that sparingly, so that one's going to last me a long time. So now that I have my hash browns seasoned, I'm just going to sprinkle them over the top. So now that I've got my topping on, I'm going to sprinkle a little bit. Well, I wanted paprika, but I don't have any. I'm out of it. Something else to add to the list. So I'm using a little bit of red pepper. It says extra hot, but it's not that hot. We got this back home in New Mexico probably about 3 or 4 years ago, but we like it. So I am going to cover it with foil. Yes, I do reuse my foil. And we're going to cook this in a 350 oven for 45 minutes. Take the foil off, let it brown up for another maybe 10-15 minutes. So into the oven it goes. I was going to sprinkle some cheese on it, but this is all the cheese I have left that isn't frozen. This is the only piece I have left in the fridge. So it will have to go without. So here it is out of the oven, nicely browned, and it did take about 15 minutes once I took the foil off for it to brown up. My oven runs a little bit hot, so it might take a little bit longer in your oven for it to brown up, but just watch it and let it brown up a little bit. And tonight I'm going to serve it with a side of corn and peas. I'm just going to mix these two together. And has everybody noticed this? These peas are really small. I have never seen these peas this small. I've seen new peas small like this, but not the regular peas. So this is my take on tater tot casserole, and I served it with my side of veg. So this is dinner tonight. So for this week's sweet treat, I'm going to use up some of this muffin mix. Now I have chocolate chip here, and I don't know if you can see that, but I've added in the powdered milk, so all I have to do now is add in my water. And as you can see, they expired May 11th, 2022. Yeah, so almost 2 years old. So this is what they look like. Quite a few lumps in there. So what I'm going to do is just take my whisk and try to knock out as many of them as I can, especially that milk powder. I'm going to try to break that up as best as I can. So I'm going to add in some my water. Now I did warm up my water just a little bit, just to help with those clumps, to help break them up. So I'm going to just mix it in, and I'm going to let it sit for a few minutes just to absorb into the clumps and everything, and then just try to thoroughly mix it through. And as you can see, it looks quite good. It does smell fine. I made sure I smelled it before I went this far. And I'm just going to take my scoop. This is a cookie scoop, and I'm going to fill my muffin tins. Now at the end, you're going to notice that a couple of them, actually I see it here, I didn't notice when I was scooping them in, just trying to film and everything else, but that first one especially, you can see there's a couple of dry spots. So I'm just going to take a toothpick and try to just mix that in. Make sure I see any dry spots that I see like this. I'm going to just take this toothpick and mix them in while my oven is heating up. And as you just heard, that was my oven telling me it's up to temp, 400 degrees for 14 to 16 minutes, the package says, and I will probably do it closer to 14 because my oven runs hot. So here they are out of the oven. They smell delicious, and I did taste one, and it's good. So One thing I did notice with them, they're a little on the dry side. I wouldn't say dry. They're not as moist as my muffins are. And I don't think they ever were. So maybe next time I make them, because I think I've got like 60 more packages to go through, I'll add a little bit of oil or maybe even some applesauce. That's my secret for moisture, adding in applesauce. I'll add applesauce into the mix, or a little bit of oil, maybe a tablespoon, depending on how many packages I use, or maybe a teaspoon or two, depending on if I use just one package. And just to add in some extra moisture into them. But otherwise than that, they are great. So you can use the mix after the expiration date, as I'm sure we already know. So remember, stay safe and keep prepping. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe and click that notification bell to be notified when I upload videos.